So I believe that early on I mentioned that I wanted to keep the values on these distant hills quite high and then taper off as we went off to the right. Keep the values higher, lower on this ridge or on this distant shore. I might still do that, not sure. And really keep the values higher here and drop them off as I've gone to the right. I've done a bit of those things, but not very much. Because if I were going to exaggerate the light here and here, I would end up really needing, for dramatic effect, to have this rocky structure very much in the shade. And I felt that this rocky structure was important enough that I wanted to have some interest in it. So I needed to raise the value instead of just keep it all dark. So that's what I've done. I've just decided to go in with lighter, not what you'd call direct sunlight on the rocks, but again, we have cloud everywhere. There might be a thunderhead off to our right, somewhere that's reflecting light. There are any number of reasons for indirect light. Okay, so we're on the way to having that pulled off successfully. As you can see, I've also lightened this edge of this rock a little bit and put some cooler high values just on the top of this to help bring this rock forward. At a point, once I had painted it in yesterday, this almost appeared to be a bit of an undercut. It was sort of questionable. I think that helps. There is work to be done in here and in this crevasse. I'm not going to worry about that right now. So I've laid in the trunks. I've also, as you can see, taken some fresh dark paint and re-established some outlines for these two trees, okay? And then laid in sections of trunk to help me make decisions on my brushstrokes regarding the foliage. So we're at that point. This bush I'm leaving for the moment because, these are coniferous trees, they're evergreens, and this is a deciduous tree. Or bush. So we're going to change the color slightly when we get to this one. This one stands proud, in front. This one's in front too, adjacent, and this one's coming up from behind. And there's a third one in behind there as well. So I have, the stuff that I've just sort of laid in, it's all very wet right now, so I'm just going to have to give it a minute, and then we will start playing with the green stuff. We'll get pine needles all over ourselves. Or are they spruce needles? I don't know. So I guess I should mention something. I've mentioned it before, but it does bear repeating. Typically with pieces of trunk showing throughout a tree, which I like to do because that keeps the tree interesting and more natural looking. What I like to do is, our foliage comes in front of the trunk here. Not every time, but often, your light might be coming from here, what have you, in combination with this. But if you have a section of trunk like this, keep it a little bit higher value at the bottom of it, and then taper off to nothing near the top, because that will be in the shadow. This will be, if the space is wide enough, where it catches a bit of light. You see it here. You see it in these spaces, this one not so much. But it's worth doing. Again, a small detail. I included a little broken off old branch sticking out here. I don't want to do more of them because then you start to get into that trap of too much detail. Because you have one here, it already helps to qualify it as tree trunk. As if it needed it anyway. But I still think it doesn't hurt to have a little irregularity on the trunk there. Well, I've mixed up a little pile. Let's see if it's going to work. What I'm shooting for here is value-wise midtones, and I think I've already gone too light. I think I would like to stay a little darker on these, so I'm gonna add a bit more. I'm mixing, it's just ultramarine blue and yellow ochre. I had a little white in there, but now I'm going to add more to my pile, not adding white. See what that looks like. Okay, I think that's better for a mid-tone. Now, it's okay to get lighter as we get closer to the rock, I think, but around the tops, I don't want to be too light with the color. So let's just throw in. I always say throw in. That's probably not the best way of describing things. Okay. Sorry, sometimes when I say things like, okay, well, that's just because I'm thinking to myself and I'm not always so good at articulating my thoughts. But I think that works well as a mid-tone because I can go both lighter or darker. I don't want to lay dark over it. I want to stay away from the very darkest areas, but I am able to lay on, and I probably will, some highlights later. But for the moment, I think this is going to work just fine. Okay. Now we get a little more aggressive with our strokes and try to keep things interesting. Okay, this push comes in like so. Something behind it. Carving around that foreground bush a little bit. Okay, back to this tree now. Careful strokes. Don't want to color outside the lines too much. Okay. All right. I don't know if I want to go a lot darker there, so I'm I don't want a black streak beside what I have going on here already. Okay. So you can see, excuse me, things are starting to get some form here. I just added a hint of ultramarine blue to my mix, just to darken it. You know, just make sure it's got that feel of being in the shadow. And I don't want to be too drastic because these don't have direct sunlight on them. Okay. Yeah, I'm not even that dark, am I? Okay, well, good. That's fine. A little more ultramarine blue, and just so it doesn't go too blue, I'm adding a little bit of yellow ochre, but no white. I'm staying completely away from white right now. And I'm carving and sculpting very carefully. Very carefully. Okay, this is all the foreground bush, so I'll leave that alone. This is not so much in the shadow, but it is around the back side of the tree. Okay. Sounds like Mama just came home, so I'm just gonna take a break. Okay, I have the trees, these two painted in. We're gonna leave that one for later. I'm going to lay in a bit of highlighting now. Just trying to select a few areas. Don't want to overdo it. Again, mostly because I don't want these trees to be too light. You know, down near the bottom I can afford to get quite a bit lighter. But near the tops I don't want to do too much. I have to be a bit careful. Having said that, I am confident in that stroke. Also those ones. And I'm still mixing ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, and a bit of white. I have to add a little more white to that. And a little more yellow ochre. Warming it up just a bit. Not much. Just a little. Okay, that's pretty significant. but I like it. Okay, backing up a little. Because I'm painting wet and wet right now, I need to reload my brush quite a bit. Because if I don't, I'll end up with some very weak looking strokes. I don't want to do that. See, this is a very flat, well, this is a flat brush, but it's also quite new. Excuse me. Okay, getting a little braver now. But see how that adds texture? See how that additional layer of light now begins to give some shape to the tree, some roundness, some depth. You know, up until this point, I had painted in darker that which is behind these trunks, and a little lighter that which was in front of the trunks. Now I'm taking that third step on these trees, and I'm trying to put in some actual shots of light that are hitting the trunks, or hitting the foliage rather. If I do that, it helps this tree, it helps this tree appear behind this tree. You know, we have light on the coming from the right here, so we go to the dark, and then if our lines indicate that this tree is proud of that tree, as long as we kind of stick to that, then putting a fresh dose of light on the tree behind it seems to help things show up the way that I want them to. Okay, I'm blithering again. Now I'm tempted to do so many things that I need to avoid. You know, when I paint a scene like this and the light is shining on these trees, you know, direct sunlight on these trees, which I admittedly quite like doing, then then I can go really strong and really warm. I don't want to be too warm. I don't want to be too strong, because I want these to still have that idea of a silhouette. I don't want them to be warm, because I don't want warmth here to compete with warmth here. I want this to be a little cooler, only slightly. Yeah, you know, I think for the time being, I'm going to leave it at that. I think that's okay. I connected these two. I don't want to connect those two. See, tiny little thing like that, eh? Alright, before I start fixating too much on these little things... Oh, wait a minute. One more issue. Where did I see that? Oh yeah. I definitely want distinction here. Distinction between the closest tree and the one behind it. Okay, stop playing. Okay, I'm just going to bring the camera around and look at it again, dead on, and maybe zoom in a little bit to give you a close-up look of what I've been up to here. Whoops, sorry. I just keep bumping things. Okay. So yes, those trees, they do have layers on them, but they're wet in wet layers. They blend together. And yes, this one is gonna have to wait till later, the one on the left. And these rocks, you know, certain areas are definitely needing more work. That's fine. I knew it when I painted it. As with the whole painting, you know, there are various adjustments that need to be done. That's okay. It works for me. All right. Talk to you soon, guys. Bye.